All right, CJ, we just played in the basement and made a bunch of music and then had like an hour and a half conversation. My voice is kind of shot. I have no idea. Well, I do have some idea. I have a little bit of an idea. But we're going to talk about that intersection of philosophy and music that we love so much.
Yes.
And usually you bring the topic and you did not disappoint. So what exactly is it that you want to discuss tonight?
Well, I'm interested in the philosophy of provocateurs, at least in art, and how we sometimes try to distance being a good person and being an artist. And then sometimes we combine them and say, like, oh, if the person's bad, then I'm not going to listen to their music at all. And case in point, I guess we're using as a case study Kanye West. And I personally love his music, yet some people don't really agree with him as a person, or they see that his belittling of different people and of just his massive ego and all these things are somewhat affecting their perception of him as an artist. So they say, like, no, I don't like him because he's, you know, like, you ask them, like, oh, do you not like their music? They're like, no, he's just an egotistical prick. I don't really like him that much. But I guess just using him as that kind, I don't know, maybe using Kanye West as a building block to kind of explore how we view artists and just these kind of people where it's like maybe they're not good, like as we would judge like good people, but is that the point? Does it really matter? Are we limiting ourselves if we just look at art from good people? You know what I mean? Like, how does that work? I don't know. It's just something that's just kind of fascinating me after kind of listening to Life of Pablo a little bit, and then just hearing different reactions. And
oh, you have listened to some of it?
Some of it, yeah.
What do you think?
I enjoy it. Yeah, he uses some weird samples, or at least like stuff you wouldn't expect. You're like, huh, that's interesting. Like I never expect Kanye West to use it.
I'm so excited to listen to it.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. But yeah, just like with that surfacing, and then just the whole cult of personality around him, I think it'd be something to dive into, and especially since philosophy is kind of built on provocateurs and people that upset systems. And I mean, like, one of your favorite philosophers is a bit of a provocateur, at least in Kierkegaard and stuff. So maybe trying to explore that idea and just, yeah, I think I've discussed the topic enough. I think we can kind of just dive right into it.
I'm just going to try to address, you said a lot there, so I'm going to try to address, maybe I'll address the particular situation and then move to like the universal situation. And the particular situation is like, I have no problem with Kanye West at all. I think he's a genius. And I have never found myself to let his personality get in the way of my appreciation of his art. And I think that is something that I had to come to terms with, separating an individual from their creative output at a very young age. I think actually because I was introduced to philosophy via Nietzsche, and I fell in love with philosophy because of Nietzsche. But what's the systematic, and by systematic I mean pervasive of all culture, Western culture, knock on Nietzsche? Why do people not take Nietzsche seriously? There are a couple things that make people not take Nietzsche seriously. Do you know what I'm getting at here?
That a lot of it has to do with his private life and not so much his thought.
Yeah, well, yeah. In a sense, so there are two major things that make people not take Nietzsche seriously. The first being that his ideas were co-opted by the Nazi Party.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So his sister kind of like sold him out and then like got him to associate with the Nazi Party, and he never would have been an advocate of National Socialism for so many reasons. Because I mean, he's all about the individual.
Right.
He's not going to be for some sort of collective movement. And any sort of suppression of life or any of that. So he's not going to be into that.
Sure.
And the second thing is Nietzsche went insane.
Right.
Nietzsche was had probably the most beautiful meltdown. And speaking of meltdowns, I mean, we might be witnessing a meltdown in Kanye West. But he had the most beautiful meltdown. He threw his arms around a horse that he saw being whipped in the street and then collapsed.
It's interesting too. It's very literary, at least.
It's such a metaphor.
Or at least there were like Crime and Punishment. I remember in Crime and Punishment there was that dream. I can't remember if Raskolnikov was having or something, where this horse is beaten to death, and Dostoevsky like describes it like in vivid detail, and you're just like, oh my god, this is just so bad. Yeah. It's just like, I don't know if that's part of it, but yeah, no, there's just this totally just gut wrenching moment where it's just like, okay, yeah, he's done, like he needs to go to the asylum. But
yeah, so yeah. I was saying is,
but a lot of that is connected to not his ideas, but more or less what happened to him.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, at 18 or 19 years old, I was taught that you do not judge a person's ideas by their behavior or what their ideas get turned into. You judge the merit of the ideas. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, 18 years ago, that's what I've done. Mm-hmm. Whether it be the case with Nietzsche, Kanye West, Heidegger turned Jewish colleagues into the Nazi Party. And even after the Holocaust and everything was exposed and World War II was done and stuff like that, and Heidegger still lived and everything like that, he never really repented for the sins that he did in the name of National Socialism. Mm-hmm. Yet I still read Heidegger. Am I not going to read Heidegger because he was a bastard to like very decent and kind people? Mm-hmm. Like, if his ideas are good, his ideas are good. So I guess the thing is, I personally don't have a problem with Kanye West. I don't care what he does on Twitter. I don't care what he says about Taylor Swift. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about erratic behavior on Saturday Night Live. All I really care about is like, does he make good hip hop albums? And from what I can tell, he's made 7 of them in a row. They're actually like freaking amazing.
Right.
Now I haven't heard Life of Pablo yet. Mm-hmm. From what I understand, there are punctuated moments of genius, and then are those moments in between the genius? I don't know. But
or is the whole process? Yeah, because it was a little messy.
It's supposed to be
where it's messy. Where it's like on Twitter he would reveal the set list and it'd always be changing.
He's still making, from what I understand, he's still revising the music too.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, but that's where I think it's where this question gets interesting, because then sometimes somebody's personal life leads into their art, where you always hear that idea of like, oh, you gotta live your, like, some people just live their art, which is then was kind of like like the whole cult of Hemingway, where that kind of, where his life is affected, or his life goes and seeps into his art in some way or another, or seeps into his work. And it's a very romantic notion too, where it's just,
I wonder what Kanye would have to do for me to not listen to his music.
Right.
Ooh.
Right, well, exactly.
I wonder
maybe
if I do have a limit.
Music, or maybe, I don't know, because that's another interesting thing too, where I wonder sometimes if, and this is totally off topic, but whether the music, whether I would like a certain artist if it wasn't him that wrote that music, where maybe if it was like sort of like, if I was like on the fence, but I was like, oh, it's because X wrote that song and I like it now. But like if Y artist wrote that song, I'd be like, that's a crock of crap. Like, I'm not going to listen to that. Where like a lot of it is affected by this like cult of personality. Well, granted, I know that cult of personality is more based on the work and the ideas than anything, but there is this kind of looming sort of figure. And I would like to think that the personal side is a part of that too. I don't know. But
yeah, so I want to address your questions in order. Mm-hmm. So I think I did a good job making the case for why we ought not to let personal behavior or accidental features of an individual's life affect the quality of the creative thing that they do, right? And that those are separable. By illustrating that through Nietzsche and his madness and the work that he created, and obviously we still saw some value in it. We found a lot of really good things in it. But what were the questions after that? You're gonna have to help me, Jog.
Oh, jeez, I don't even remember. I feel like it was just one big kind of swoop. I feel like it was a big meditation on that idea.
Well, I guess, are you thinking about the role of the provocative artist or something? You said something about...
Yeah, or maybe I was just interested in this idea of the provocateur, or this kind of controversial figure that we're not supposed to like him, and yet we do. Does that make sense? Where, like you said, like, I don't care how bad Kanye West is as a person, but sometimes it's like how bad he is what makes him interesting, in the sense of like bad as in like he's just, subversive. Is that the right word?
That would be the other thing that I feel like I'm mounting some big defense of Kanye West, and that's fine.
That's okay. I mean,
I guess the thing that I was
trying to understand it.
In the particular with Kanye West, and then I want to talk about the universal. I actually don't think, to me, he doesn't seem like a jerk. Like, I know the president called him a jackass. Stop being a jackass, Kanye. Like, I'm gonna call you out. And I know, like, people think he's constantly doing immoral things.
Let's assume he's a jerk just for the sake of argument. Let's assume that what he does is
like he's a. I don't know. I get. Well.
Because another interesting thing about this is that, well, the world would be a less interesting place without Kanye in it. In the sense that, I mean, how I look at that statement is that, well, if we didn't have somebody that to fill this kind of role, where I'm almost taking like a theatrical, like, if the world is
he's a comic book character. He's
the
Penguin. He's the Joker.
Sure, or if like the world is a stage where all players, like maybe he's the jester, or he's this kind of heel of a character that we kind of take in, but we need him. We need that heel, and yet we despise that heel at the same time. You know what I mean? Where it's like this weird kind of
I just think
correlation where it's just like we hate him and yet we love him at the same time.
I don't even hate him. I just see him as being necessary for making life interesting.
Right. Well, that's what I'm interested in that question too. Or that's a fascinating thing where it's just necessary to make life interesting.
I think I think Kanye, his music, I think everything, it's just make believe.
Go into that. Yeah,
it's just one big piece of performance art. It's just a movie I can distantly interact with. I can respond to his music and tag him in a tweet on Twitter, and it's just like watching a movie. It's just make believe. He's just and whatever persona he's putting out there is not him. He's playing the villain. It's a role. But I mean, what would be philosophically interesting about that? The fact that we need, as humans, that we need make believe. Is that the interesting thing? Maybe I'm just like aware of the fact that we need it.
Right, I think that's
whereas everybody else is caught up in the drama, and they're like, "Boo, Kanye."
Sure, I mean, I think that's the whole Shakespeare thing, where the world is a stage and we're merely players. Where it's just like we need these roles, or we need masks to make, maybe not so much to make life interesting, but maybe, dare I say, to make life bearable, or to keep it going.
Is there anything that we've drawn on in our philosophical stuff that may be relatable to this? I mean, I mean, I mean, I can almost think of if we go like to the idea of like Kierkegaard, where it's like, why did he like Socrates? Like, one of the reasons, like, I know at least you told me like Kierkegaard loves Socrates. Yeah. Like, I feel like maybe one of the things, like, Socrates is probably the original provocateur in that sense, where he's just kind of being devil's advocate for
just to
Socrates just pissed everybody off.
Right, but it was in service to the truth. So we wonder, okay, like now if we deal with like these kind of like heels, like is it in service of some greater?
Well, yeah.
Say like is Kanye this is almost like getting like like tin hat kind of thing, but it's like Kanye West being this sort of or is him being this sort of person? I don't even know if he's aware of this, but is him being this heel in service of a greater beauty or art or something.
I think that's a fantastic point.
Yeah.
Is Kanye West an iteration of an archetype? Is Kanye West a black hip hop Socrates? I'm serious.
No, I know.
I'm so serious. Is Kanye West the reincarnation of Soren Kierkegaard? Is what Socrates was to Athens, Greece, and what Kierkegaard was to Copenhagen.
Sure, is to our 21st century world.
Yeah, is Kanye to Chicago or America?
Sure, or to the world. Yeah.
And what would I think you can make the case? I mean, going off a tweet that he made the other night, where he asked Mark Zuckerberg for $1 billion, and he's like, I need 1 billion ideas so I can bring beautiful ideas into the world. And I'll tell you what, man, I'm going to give to that.
Yeah.
That is the best pitch for a Kickstarter, a fundraising thing. He's like, I do dope things. I need more money to do dope things. Granted, he does.
He prefaces that by saying, like, I am such and such $1 billion or like $1 million in debt. And like, I need this money. Or like, I need to get out of debt. Like something like that where it was like almost like desperate, like I'm in financial straits. And I guess like as a pitch, he's just like I make beautiful stuff.
He's like, dear Earth.
Yeah.
I make your life exciting by giving you someone that you get exercised and animated about. Like I give you something to think about because you don't have enough to think about already. You're all like mindless drones. Like so like I give you something to think about at your dumb job, right? So you can like go off on some like Facebook tear or something like that. Mm-hmm. And in the process, I also give you beautiful things. Dear Earth, give me $1 billion. It's is it that insane?
That's very insane. And
is that insane?
It's different. Well, I mean, considering how like with today's technology and social media, the provocateur almost takes a different kind of almost meta sort of stance, or like where I don't even know if he's. I mean, I know he's full aware of that. Or is that the persona where it just almost seems like this is completely natural? Where it's almost this meta thing where it's like he knows he's like this, but he's gonna pretend he doesn't know that he's like this, or that it brings out a reaction. I don't know. That's sort of a sub-tangent.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing. Is this, how in control of this persona is he? Mm-hmm. It's how long a leash is that demon on?
Sure, because we can claim all sorts of cognition to Kanye or to anybody and say like, oh yeah, they know what they're doing. They are in full control, but we never know if they are in full control or not. And that's where the idea of personal life and artistic life, I think, also comes back into play, where if the person's not really in full control, then maybe we don't really. Where if like, okay, Nietzsche went insane, but like it's just his ideas that matter. It's okay. I don't know. I mean, maybe that doesn't play much of a role. Maybe I'm just trying to bring it back, but
I think he's got to be a highly functioning, intelligent dude, because like we're talking about him.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about him. I don't even know if he's paying for PR. Like, he has created a spectacle. Like,
Well, this is the interesting thing. Like when you use the word spectacle, that almost kind of demeans, or just kind of makes it like just entertainment. Where I think we're asking like, what is the purpose of this? Where if it's just like just to entertain, but we're saying like he could be a Socrates or something.
I think the spectacle is going to eventually. These seem like these spectacles, be it a fashion show and tweets and Saturday Night Live crazy performances and things like that. It's preparatory. Like it's getting us ready for this beautiful thing that he's going to introduce into the world, and that he intends to make a lot of money off of. It was interesting. He's already been offered $10 million to not release Life of Pablo. And guess who offered him $10 million for it? That the Pharma Bro. Martin Scarelli, or he
why was that? Why did he not?
I think Scarelli he wants to buy the album and exclusively own it. And I think this is it. Just like how Scarelli is this, am I pronouncing his name right?
Who cares?
Yeah,
fine.
Pharma Bro. Right. Pharma Bro, he bought the Wu-Tang album. And he's the only person who's heard it and has it. He bought it for $1 million or
right.
And and now he's trying to do the same thing. But Kanye's already started streaming it. It's been downloaded 500,000 times. But I think it's interesting.
And what's so fascinating here is that you're talking about how the personal life leads into build up for his art. So I don't know if you can just divorce those two, where if a lot of his shenanigans and whatnot and just persona and everything that he's doing,
they're connected and not connected at the same time,
right? I'm just interested in the way they're connected, because they're connected in a way, and maybe that's just with social media today and everything, where it's like, who knows what would happen if Nietzsche had a blog, or
oh my god,
or God, if Kafka had a blog or something, you know what I mean, where it's just like, we have this public journal that all these different artists back then didn't have. You know what I mean? So
I think
that we have, I don't even want to get hypothetical with it, because I don't know what these artists would have done with that. God forbid Proust had a blog or something where you just go on forever. But how does that affect, or having this microphone or megaphone, how does that affect public persona too? And like how we're saying, like, oh, the world's a stage. Like now it's really a stage where we have likes and we have followers and we have retweets, where it's almost becomes just a kind of almost like how people say, like, okay, like how many views did this, or like I don't know, TV executives, or people are like, okay, how many views did we get? Show me the numbers. Where it almost becomes like, show me the numbers now.
Yeah. Well, so there are a couple things there. There are a lot of really interesting ideas there. The first thing is how his public life is connected and not connected. Mm-hmm. So they're not connected in the sense that, like, I don't think we can judge the work of art based off of his whatever perceived moral failings he may have, or moral virtues. Like, I think that's why, conversely, I think someone like Taylor Swift, a lot of people like her music because they like what she stands for, and therefore they see more in the music than is probably actually there. And because they don't like Kanye West, they don't see the beauty in what Kanye West does. So, they're not connected in that respect, but they're connected in the sense that their personal lives are preparatory in the sense for the delivery mechanism of this thing. And they do fulfill these sort of archetypes that we sort of emotionally connect with, and then that sort of opens up the opportunity to experience whatever art they bring into our world. But I think the more interesting question, I do like exploring the idea of, like, if other intellectual provocateurs had access to the things that we have access to. I do like exploring that, but maybe you don't want to open that at all. What they would be doing.
No, I feel like that would be kind of we don't know.
I can say that someone like Kierkegaard would probably be using it in some respect. I mean, he was always coming up with inventive ways to express his philosophical points of view, whether it be through whatever publications were available to him at that time. And I don't think he would be the only one.
No, and that's interesting with him because then he'd have his own, and he has his own pseudonyms and personas because like he could have multiple Twitter tags, you know what I mean, or you know, like he could have multiple profiles or whatever, and you wouldn't really know what he or who is Kanye. Well, that's another, I guess, interesting thing too to go into, like when you talk about like pseudonyms, where it's like he's responding. I guess like Kierkegaard's responding to himself, but it's like he's responding to other people, where it's like we think of the cult of personality, but like within an artist, it's like, is that him? Who is Kanye West? You know, it's like who is David Bowie? Like,
I think a lot of that would be fair game.
Yeah.
That would be. I say that like people like Kierkegaard would use these means, but I have to simultaneously say it out of the other side of my mouth.
Yeah, it's like
that he would be pretty anti technology and society getting towards a singularity through the social media and things like that. So I think he'd probably be deeply skeptical of it.
And of the triviality of it all. Because if he was kind of dismissive of people writing small books, or like people were just like, yeah, people don't really read long books anymore. Like, why is that? Like, people just write. Like, I think he's even dismissive of people just writing, like, just trivial crap. He's just like, what is this for? I think that was like that thing I was talking about before, where he's just like, I'm only interested in people that are risking their lives or have something to stand for, rather than just like, I ate this today and like, hey, here's a picture of my ravioli that I had at Olive Garden, you know, where it's just like trivial stuff, really. But again, that's another sort of topic. But I guess to go back to the whole idea of the whole idea of Kanye West, but
he is an idea.
He is an idea, which is so weird. But I've always thought, at least in the sense of, you know, trying to be a musician and music and all that stuff that I'm involved in, where I feel like I'm more concerned about being a good person first, and then like being a musician second, or being a quote-unquote artist second. You know, like, I don't really care if I'm a good artist, but if I'm a good person, that sort of thing. But if we can divorce the two, then it's just like, maybe I can be a boring person, and then I can just be a crazy artist, but it's okay. Like, I can be as wild and as offensive as I want to be as an artist, and then be a good person. Like, I don't know, like, that's what kind of interests me, or like gets me kind of.
The problem you're having is, how can an individual simultaneously be a good person and have a persona that is totally antithetical to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's that. Yeah, it's like that. That there's this.
Like maybe like Andy Kaufman would be an example of this.
Sure.
Like, who was like wrestling women, but simultaneously very tender and kind to the people that were in his inner circle. You know.
Yeah, there's a great Gustave Flaubert quote. I can't remember it, but I know something like, be boring and bourgeois in your regular life so you can be violent and creative in your work. It's just kind of like, oh.
Yeah, I have always subscribed to that saying. I live a very boring life, so I can be dangerously chaotic in everything else that I do. Like, I'm not really interested in skydiving or anything like that. Like, like, I'm more interested in that sort of inner skydive.
Right, no, but that's the interesting thing, where it's just, I don't know, like, just realizing that there is this lacuna between art, or your work, and your life. Like, I don't know, like, but it doesn't seem like there should be, but there is, you know, like, and just wondering about this whole idea, like Kanye West and stuff, how he kind of personifies that. Or
I think
to you, it's just.
I think where it's got to be difficult is that
I don't know.
Is that I'm probably making it seem like too easy that the work is separable from the persona, and the persona is separable from the real person, right? And I'm probably making it seem. I think the thing that all of these artists probably have to be very careful of is that if they do create this anti-hero, this villain or whatever, that doesn't actually seep into their actual moral development. I think that's a very interesting psychological idea about how we can maintain a public persona that is disgusting to many people, but at the same time be an upright and noble person. Because I actually, like, in the case of Kanye West, I don't think he's a jerk or a bad guy or anything like that, because I see, like, I don't know, like, fundamentally he seems like a family man. Like, he seems to love his daughter, and he seems to be committed to his wife, and from what I can tell, and
for the sake of our argument, let's assume he's a terrible person.
Right?
So
yeah.
Let's assume like what everybody. Let's assume what everybody says about, even if he loves his mother. Like, I'm sure Hitler loved his mother, but let's assume that made no sense. That was tasteless. But let's assume that everything that everybody's saying is true, and he's not a good person. So I don't know, how does that. If you had to continue with that, I don't know.
If he's not a good person, then I don't. It would depend. I guess it goes back to a question that we talked about earlier. Would be. I'd have to judge the severity of what he did to make me like listen to his music anymore. Like, you know, if he's having. Would I stop listening to his music if he's a deadbeat dad or having an affair on his wife, or didn't love his mother? Truthfully,
probably. I'd probably still listen
to his music. I probably wouldn't be maybe that makes me a crappy person for not taking more of a stand.
No, or it's just a natural thing that we do all the time.
What if he killed someone?
Right.
What if he killed someone? Would you listen to his music if he killed someone?
I probably still listen to his music, Grant. I mean, but this is the interesting thing where I think we're kind of coming to, is that we do it all the time. Like, we divorce, or we divide people, or we divide artists, or between like their work and their life, and that sometimes people combine the two, and other times people are like, who cares?
Yeah, it actually is more natural. You know who's a good example of that? Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
People, so they'll like, whatever this anti-hero personality is that Kanye's developed that's associated with his music, people conflate those things and disregard his music because of it. Michael Jackson, people don't want to hear anything about the bad stuff, and they just want to hear about little Mikey. And like all the brilliant stuff. So it's weird. There is this thing in the culture. There are some artists that people will totally separate the personal life from the art, and then there are others that conflate. You see with presidents too.
Oh
right?
Yeah, or just cults of personality.
Like,
yeah, just
if you hate Nixon, you'll hate you. He didn't get anything right. You know, like Watergate like tainted everything. But like Bill Clinton, like who cares about all the stuff he did? Like he's still a great president. Like people do that. It's not just with art. They people pick and choose what things they hold people accountable for. So I think a more interesting question is, why do they do that?
Yeah.
Why? Well, that's a more interesting question to me. Why would people be okay with Michael Jackson and not okay with Kanye West? I don't even have to. It is so notorious what Michael Jackson did. I don't even have to say what he did.
No, exactly.
It's so universally known, yet everybody still listens to Thriller. I listen to them both. I listen to Thriller and all Kanye West records. So I'm not really. This isn't really a paradox for me. But I guarantee you, there are people out there that will listen to Thriller but won't listen to Life of Pablo.
No, I think we're touching upon just something that we all do. And I guess.
Do you think there's anything significant to that?
Significant to the idea that we pick and choose.
Yeah, that we're hypocrites. Because by that standard, if we are only going to allow ourselves to listen to the music made by good people, I think we have.
That eliminates so much music where it's just like we're not listening to.
What would we be allowed to listen to?
Yeah, exactly. Like Bach or something. Like even
was
like
Bach? I mean, he had a bunch of kids.
He had a bunch of kids. He was
many,
pretty good, but
Do you have too many kids?
Yeah. Oh no, but he had a knife fight too. Yeah, I mean he found somebody with a knife. I don't know. I mean, yeah, where it's just like, oh well, then he's out. But I think what's profound about this is that we're dealing with humans, and we don't even have to go into Augustine kind of like original sin, but like we're dealing with flawed creatures, and that is anybody really perfect enough to escape scrutiny, like from a personal standpoint? Where then but then again, that almost kind of dismisses even like being a good person. We're just like, oh, everybody's crappy, like, let's just focus on if the music's good or not. But I think we're dealing with flawed human beings, and I think that's what makes it kind of interesting, is that everybody kind of has skeletons in the closet in some way or another, and it's just like trying to compensate. I don't know. And maybe we're not supposed to know, or maybe we're just kind of like reaching for straws here, but I think it's leading to interesting straws to reach for, even if we don't really grasp them. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think we're a good stopping point.
Yeah, man. Hey, I love it. I love it when we end with more questions than answers.
Yeah. I have to think about that. If there's anything significant about why we pick and choose, or we just shouldn't.
Or maybe whoever's listening knows.
Yeah.
Or at least, I don't know. Yeah. But more food for thought. Yeah. So.
All right, man. I'm going to close it down. It's late. Bye, guys.